So you have pretty much understood the first two applications of descriptive programming. The third application, which is operating on identical objects whose count is varying. So this thing can be performed using child objects. So from the name itself, let's see how we define child object. Okay. Now let's take an example of this page. Now, as you know that my this the checkbox, if you want to perform an operation on the checkbox, you know that the browser is the parent, inside which we have this page, employee details page. Okay, and inside this page we have the checkbox on which we have to perform the operation. So basically, if you see, the checkbox is the child for the parent page, or you can say browser. So if you want to perform operation on the checkbox, and suppose as I told earlier, every time I open the page, the number of checkboxes present on this page varies. This time it is 5, next time it will be 10, again some other time it will be 100. So whenever I open the count of the count of my child, count of my children is going to change dynamically. So in that case, we'll use child object to perform operation on my child objects. Okay, these are my children. So let's see how. Now that you know what I mean by saying child objects, the application of child objects method is to retrieve the child objects. Okay, so no matter whatever the count is, suppose we have 5 checkboxes or 10 checkboxes, doesn't matter. It is used for retrieving the child objects. The second application is counting the number of child objects. Okay, now from this you'll get an idea. When I know the count, the dynamic count of my child object, I can perform the operation on my child object, because now I know how many children I have for a particular class. Okay, so child objects method gives the count of the child objects. It can be 5, it can even be 0 if the child object is not present on the page in the first place. The third application is common operations on child objects. So we had seen the common operation on web checkbox, but this is a special case wherein the web checkbox count can keep on varying dynamically. Okay, so these are some of the methods which we can do. So before explaining you, I'll just comment this section and we'll start with the new line. I'll show you the example with respect to this same employee details page, so that you'll come to know the difference between using descriptive programming and child objects. Child objects comes in the category of descriptive programming, but how it is different from normal descriptive programming, that is what you need to understand. So this is my page. Okay, as you know, the checkboxes on which I have to perform the operations are my child objects. So first of all, what we'll do is we have to create an object. Okay, set O. I can give any name to the object. I'll give the name child object. So this part you know, since we have done this already. So we have to create a object in our script. The name of the object can be anything. Since it's related to child object, I'm giving the name O child object. Okay, so once I have this object, what I'll do is now I'll put the properties of all my children in that child object. Okay, now my children belongs to the class web checkbox, and there are 5 children. Okay, so I'll put the common property of all the 5 childrens inside the child object. So same way like we did for programmatic description, I'll use the property value pair. Now this time, the only difference this time is I'll use the class name web checkbox, but I won't use the name DEPT1 because DEPT1 identifies only the first checkbox, whereas in child objects concept, we have to take all the objects which belong to a particular class. So in our case, web checkbox is the class, and all the web checkboxes, that is all the 5 web checkboxes, should be taken inside the child object. And to take all the 5 objects, to take all 5 checkboxes inside the child object, we have to take the common property of all the 5 objects inside that child object. We cannot take any distinguishing property, because if we take name if we take name DEPT1, then only the first web checkbox will be taken inside the child object. But we don't want that. We want to take all the checkboxes inside the child object. So what I'll do is I'll just take the property value pair, which is common for all the web checkbox, that is class name. Since class name is web checkbox, which is common for all the checkboxes in my page. Okay. I'm sorry, I wrote descriptive programming. Okay, so it's the same concept as we use for object in descriptive programming. Inside the object we have to write the property name dot value equal to the value of the property, that is web checkbox. So now this child object will have all the 5 checkboxes inside it. So once we have our child object ready, we simply have to write the code. So I can just copy paste the code from above, from my descriptive programming code, same way. But now here there will be one difference. We have taken all the 5 checkboxes inside child object, and the name here won't be web checkbox, but it will be dot. You can see it's also in the drop down in my list. So when I click on that, dot child objects, so you don't have to write web checkbox. This is one major difference. You have to write child objects, and inside the child objects I'll write the name of my child object. Okay, that is child object. So how QTP interprets this code is, first of all I'm creating a child object, and then property value pair I'm putting it inside the child object. So this child object will have the property value pair of the web checkboxes. There are 5 web checkboxes in total in our page. So, and it can change dynamically. So this time it is 5, next time it can be 10. So every time the count can change. So whatever the count is, all these checkboxes will be inside this child object. And then we are using the child object inside this syntax dot child objects child object. So we have to mention the parent name, that is browser, dot page, these are the parents, and then dot child objects, and inside the dot child objects you have to give the object name, child object name. Okay, so once this we have this, we can just take the count. This will give us the count of the child objects, that is we have 5 web checkboxes, so here the count should be 5. So I'll define any variable, say t equal to dot count. So variable t will have the value 5.